24th of March, 2025. And I say for future reference because this is about the future of marketing with AI and beyond. So let's see how well this ages in the future, right? If you look at the current state of affairs with marketing, especially in the high-tech market, okay, we'll use that as the main example. Might use other examples too, but we'll use that as the main example for this talk, or this walk and talk, as I like to call it. Marketing has come a long way in the last 40 to 50 years since the advent of the personal computer and connecting computers over networks and growing from intranets to extranets to the internet and so on. And in that time, marketing has basically led the way on messaging and bringing awareness to the consumer market and the business market and the government market, and in fact all markets, in terms of telling people and organizations what the latest and greatest new thing is. And that takes a lot of work. And more over the last 50 years, that work has become more technical and not necessarily less creative, but the significance of the technical aspects of it have increased over time. Now, I am still a firm believer in having high quality creative marketing. Not believer in a religious sense, but a believer in the sense that I've seen the data, I've worked the data, and honestly, nothing beats really creative marketing that's out of the box, that does not follow all the standards and protocols. But does that mean that following the standards and protocols cannot work? No, it absolutely can and does work. That's why people do it. It makes the job easier. You don't have to be creative. But if you want to get stellar results, being creative certainly can help. Now with the advent of large language models, which big companies like to call AI, but it's not. In case you don't know, large language models are basically just machine learning on kind of steroids. But they're not even so much on steroids. They're really machine learning of essentially what is a snapshot, and a fairly small one at that, of the internet. Even if they grab the latest snapshots like Google does, and now like ChatGPT kind of does, and some others do. Even with all that, the amount of the internet that people actually see on the internet is a minuscule percentage, and the amount of the internet that's even publicly available is also a very small fraction. It's the old 10% above the water, 90% under the water iceberg rule. You know, you see 10% above the water and it looks massive, but if you look underwater, you'll see it's a lot more massive, right? But the fact is, as the internet grows, it's nowhere near 10% above the water. It's really more like 1%. And the 99% is under the water. So even though the internet looks huge on its surface, and it is, and it's growing significantly every year, the fact is, underwater, it's growing much, much faster. Right? It is significantly more immense. So large language models don't look at the stuff that's under the water, mostly because they're limited in their capabilities, and they can't look at that much data. And they're trained on a very small amount of information, relatively. You know, I think the first publicly released popular version of ChatGPT that came out in like Q3 of 2022, which I remind you was just a little over 2 years ago, like 2.5 years ago. That was like a large language model trained on, you know, less information than you can fit on an average hard disk. In fact, far less than that. It was like hundreds of gigabytes, if that. It was really a small amount of data. So how do they get so good? Well, they keep training them on larger and larger data sets. But even so, the data sets are still comparably small to what exists in the real world and on the internet itself, including what's above the water and what's below. How they got quote unquote good, first of all, they're not all that good, but they got quote unquote good by essentially being able to read and write, read, interpret, and rewrite what it sees on its scans of the data set of relevant information. And they use fast computing. And we've seen the Chinese company Deep Dive create, or Deep Whale, or whatever it's called, create a very fast and broad large language model that's very powerful. And of course, it's Chinese, so it collects all your data and most certainly hands it to the CCP, even though I'm sure they would tell you, no, of course we don't do that. They have to by law. Okay, they have to be accessible to the CCP, whether they tell you that or not. They can even lie to you about it. Okay, they're not under no obligation to be truthful to you about it. They're not an American or European or democratic nation with rules and regulations and laws that protect civilians from government spying. Everything you do on any Chinese-related business, including, by the way, on Discord. That's why it's good to use not your real name on Discord and not your real ID and not store your real information there, because it is largely owned by Chinese companies, namely Tencent. They're the major shareholder in Discord. And Tencent is, of course, a Chinese company. But that's not to knock them or anything. I'm just pointing out, be careful when you use Chinese products, especially when it's information related, because they are 100% absolutely collecting information and using it for their own purposes, which may or may not be benign for now, but you don't know what they're going to do with that information in 5, 10, 20, 50 years time, right? You don't know. And why take that risk? So, future of AI, future of marketing. Marketing is not going to rely on AI entirely, although there are a tremendous amount of wonderful things you can do with AI, and people are using AI increasingly for now, because we're still in the discovery mode, right? We're still in the phase when people are learning what to do with these tools, and the more they learn, the more they find things they like to do, the more they like to find shortcuts they can do with these tools, so the more they're doing with the tools. But the reality is that they are not going to fully replace the role of tradition. I know, I know. I can have a whole marketing plan and strategy developed in minutes by an AI. It's very professional looking and whatever. Sure, I know. There's plenty of tools that can do that, some better than others, some free, some not. I know. That does not mean that marketing is going to go away. I'm going back to creative marketing. Creative marketing requires a human being, requires a creative human being. And guess what? Most humans are creative, at least not very creative. Certainly not enough to be creative marketers. They may be creative in their own lines of work, or creative in that sense. We are creative in our ability to adapt and innovate. That's true. But when it comes to being a professional marketer, well, just like any field, there's a limited number of people who can actually do the thing that they do, right? People ask me, why is marketing so easy for you? When you do anything as long as that, it's not difficult. After a while, you get the knack of something, and you're capable of doing it very well, and you make it seem effortless, and you might even think it's effortless because you've been doing it for so long, but in truth, it's not effortless, and in truth, most people cannot do that. They're not aware of things like analytics. They're not aware because they spend their time doing other stuff. Not everyone thinks about marketing all day. Just like if you're a marketer, hopefully you don't sit around and think about medical problems all day, unless you're marketing things to do with medical problems, right? Hopefully you're not sitting around thinking about carpentry all day, unless you're marketing carpentry related stuff, unless it's your hobby or something, right? You focus on the things that you work on and that you have an interest in. And as a result, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And the reality is, we all have far more weaknesses than strengths. And the proof of that is, there are literally hundreds of thousands of types of jobs, if not millions of types of jobs in the world. You can't possibly do them all, even if you spend one day doing a different job, like every day you do a different job. How many days do you think you live? If you live to be 100, I hope you all live to be at least that long, and far longer, 120 plus tax. If you live to be 100, have you done the math yet? You get to live 36,500 days. That's it. Do you think there are less than 36,500 different types of jobs in the world, or more, or the same? And would you actually be capable of working a separate job every day of your life, even if the opportunity was theoretically available? No, because you need to have days off, and you don't start working from the time you're a newborn baby. And in theory, you would like to have a retirement at some point, unless you're one of those people who just wants to work for the entirety of your life, which is pretty rare. Or unless you're one of those people who cannot, unfortunately, less and less rare. But even if you were able to take on a separate type of job every day and work 36,500 jobs over a 100-year period, first of all, you would obviously not be a master of any of them. You would have done each thing for... It really isn't. It's, in fact, quite far from it. And if you think it's going to replace creative marketers at this age, or even in the next 50 to 100 years, or really ever, and I mean fully replace, it's not. There's not going to be a time when smart companies think to themselves, you know what? We don't need real people to do our marketing anymore. Now, there are going to be some companies who try it, and some will even succeed, and there'll be stellar successes, and people say, how did you do that without marketing? And they'll have their wonderful secret recipe. And I guarantee you that their secret recipe includes brilliant marketing, even if it's not publicly known. They will have amazing word of mouth. Word of mouth marketing is very powerful, maybe the most powerful type of marketing, because it's your audience telling other people about your products. That is invaluable. No marketer can recreate the power of word of mouth marketing. Marketers can create the word of mouth marketing inspiration. We can plant the seed that germinates and causes the audience to love the product so much that they start spreading the word. But you need to have great products, and you need to be able to tell that story. And you tell that story with marketing. And yes, machines can create that story, but it will be obviously done by machines. And even if that works on a huge percentage of people, it will be more effective if it's done in a creative way done by humans. And you can tell me, but generative AI is getting so good, soon it's going to be able to be very creative and it'll be able to replace creative marketers. No, it won't. Because there are things generative AI can only do, and there are things that generative AI cannot do. For example, generative AI cannot yet walk down the street and hand out flyers to your little restaurant and tell people face to face in real human form and not some robot rolling down the street or walking down the street handing out flyers and freaking people out and being a novelty item. Oh, you have a robot marketing your restaurant. Real humans can walk down the street and have real human interactions with other real humans who are real customers for your restaurant. A Gen AI bot can't do that, even if it is very sophisticated. And if it ever gets to the point where it's so sophisticated that you can't tell that the clone robot walking down the street is a clone robot, I assure you there are going to be rules and regulations that do let you know. Because the world of human beings is not going to simply allow robots to be created that completely fool human beings for the purpose of selling them things. You will have to have disclaimers. Now, I know there are people saying, oh, what are you talking about? Capitalist enterprises will do anything and break the rules and change the rules, and they will make it happen. There will be rules that prevent that from happening in many places. Not to restrict marketing from being better, but to ensure that people are not scammed by robots, and to ensure that people are not fooled by robots that could look like them and sound like them and feel like them and basically think like them in an artificial sense, and effectively fool other humans, real humans, into thinking that they are real humans. And by the way, if robots ever do get to that point and people make renegade brand robots that are designed, and that will happen, that are designed to fool other humans or humans, you can bet your bottom dollar that there are going to be firms that develop robots that can be your companion or your friend or your guardian that will detect other robots. They'll have some kind of old world terminology, X-ray vision, right? They'll be able to see that the thing is a machine. It's not purely organic, that it's got, electronics and mechanics inside. And that will be a dead giveaway to your robot. And your robot may be in your phone, right? It could just be a little thing that beeps and says, hey, I detect a robot talking to you. Or you might have a real human-looking robot of your own. And if yours is ethical, it will let other robots and other people know it is a robot when that situation is necessitated or is necessary. So, this video is not meant to make you depressed if you are a marketer. In fact, quite the opposite. It should give you hope and inspire you positively to see that the future of marketing is going to involve more than just AI. As much as AI is taking over a lot of the work, as much as AI is already limiting tons of jobs, as much as AI is driving out people from the field, forcing people to retire early, etc., AI is not going to kill off human marketing. It may enhance it. It already has. It may continue to get better, and it may make your life easier as a marketer. It already has if you are leaning into it. It may continue to make companies more efficient. It already has, depending on your company. But it is not going to replace every last marketer, least of all the creative ones. So that's my message to you as a marketer who's been doing marketing for a very long time, for the life of one human. And till the next one, stay safe, be well, be happy, be healthy, be prosperous, be good. Peace.